Now, another scenario that I wanted to talk to you about, it might be loosely paraphrased and that details might not be as accurate, but you'll get the gist or the gist, whatever they say.
The GIF.
The GIF. The GIF. Friends of mine, they're 2 kids. They're both married. That's kind of irrelevant. But their dad suffered a brain injury many years ago. And the parents separated. So old mate with the brain injury, he's been on income protection for the last 20 years, can function as a human, but cognitively there can be some advantages taken. So long story short, he met a woman in the town that they were living in. They were together less than a year. Next minute, she moved in. He basically titled the house over to her, or half of it, or something like that. Next minute, she's leaving him. It was a bit of a good old-fashioned taking advantage of somebody who maybe couldn't compute or thought he was doing the right thing. And the wash-up of it is they're selling the house, and he either gifted half of it or put the whole title on her for whatever reason, okay? But the question I've got is, and I was talking to my friend's mum at a party because she's still it's all amicable. She was telling me about Mr. who's been taken advantage of and with the brain injury. He's wanting to buy another house and downsize as well. We'll call it a villa or something like that. We'll just make a number up. He might have $800,000 to buy a property. And they're really, after the wash up of the separation, and, they've just gone look, anyway. So my question is, in this scenario, can he, because he's got the 2 daughters who are adults, can we use the granny flat provisions and tick the estate planning box, have the house owned by the 2 daughters and he lives in it, and not have that, call it $800,000, flagged as a gift to protect him from being taken advantage of because of the intellectual, cognitive brain injury stuff? Does that make sense? I know.
Yeah, there's layers to this.
So it's just more, rock up tomorrow. If we've got a guy who needs to buy a house, but they want to protect it from him shacking up with someone who's like, yeah, let's move in together after 5 minutes, and she takes his money. So can the house go in the daughter's name without triggering a gift for Centrelink when the time comes?
You're going to hate my answer.
Yeah.
Because the question we need to answer is, who is this for?
Yes.
And is he a person? Is he able to make his own decisions even if they are terrible?
Right. Okay.
And
so
this is I get this kind of inquiry more often than I wish I did.
Yeah.
When people ring me and they say, this is what's happened.
Yeah, I'm of sound mind, but I do dumb things is different than I've got an intellectual disability.
Correct. So can he make decisions? Can he even enter these arrangements in the first place is a big question that comes to me straight away.
I think he can, but it's that overwhelm and, that seems like a good idea, but someone's because he's a bit slower.
Yeah. And then the who is it for bit is complex because you could say, it's because then the house is in my name and I have these assets. You could say we've preserved the estate. You could say we don't want dad being ripped off again because then one of us is going to end up having him live with us and we're going to have to take care of him and fork out for him. All of those things are more about me than they are about dad.
Yeah.
And dad has agency. Dad is a person, even if we don't like the decisions he's making. And that part of it is really hard sometimes. We want to do the best by them. But if he is his own person, no one's able to act on his behalf, he can make the terrible mistakes and he's allowed to.
Yeah. So the only thing I'm thinking in this situation is, and I've just texted my friend, I don't know if she'll reply between now and the next 2 minutes. I said, random question, how old is your dad? If dad's 60 or 62, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 62 or younger, he could gift that money to the two girls, buy the house in their name, sign a lifetime tenancy arrangement, and he can live there as long. But if he moves in with someone, it's not his house. And then if he comes online for Centrelink at age 67, it's been longer than 5 years, he's living in a house rent-free.
The big questions are going to come back to, who is this for? Who's directing it? Is someone driving him to the office to sign the papers, to give the money? These are the things that are going to set off alarm bells for most professionals. It doesn't mean it can't be done. I think these are those sensitive situations where...
Yeah, because it could, like, the casual observer could look in and say, well, it's financial abuse from the daughters, but without the context and...
So it's very, very case by case, and that's why I say you're going to hate my answer because it's a non-answer. It's not even an it depends because it's so much deeper than that because it's not a... I wouldn't even start looking at the granny flat how. I'd be starting at the why.
Well, the premise is, how do we protect dad from himself?
Yeah. So what...
okay, this is interesting. You know, you scratch this surface, brain injury aside, all that stuff. We've got someone who's got means and he's a gambler.
Yep.
How do we make it so they can live in this house, 800 grand, rent free? They can't go in and get a reverse mortgage. How does that work?
I've literally had this kind of inquiry.
Really?
Where the kids have bailed out mum and dad to keep the holiday house.
Yeah.
They made sure it stayed because mum and dad were gamblers. And they never wrote any of it down. And they're like, well, we're going to take ownership of the house. And the house is in Sorrento in Victoria. So it was worth 100 grand and now it's worth 1.5 mil. And they're like, well, we paid it off. We made sure, that's too bad. We didn't write it down. You didn't change ownership. And now they're worried that mum and dad have still got that issue. This is part of the unfortunate part of life, I think. But I'll flip it around the other way. What if you did transfer the money to the daughters to protect dad, and one of the daughters is married, and then they separate?
Well,
and is the asset still siloed? Now the assets disappeared in a different way, which when we look at granny flat arrangements is sort of one of those challenges that comes in generally as well.
Okay,
it's like
so
life happens at all levels, right?
So if you, we said we weren't getting in the weeds, but you're entering into a territory where that house and the property could be a candidate to be owned by a trust.
That's when you start looking at this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you start with who's this for? Why are we doing this? Who's making decisions? Can they make decisions? And then you enter...
Yeah, you're right, because you're at risk if there is marital breakdown between one of the daughters, that's an estate or a family law property asset. Unless there was
business
a binding
issues or
unless there was a financial agreement in place. Yeah. And I mean, this is just
and we start spiraling real fast.
Yeah.
But it is a good segue though into there's what we call a 5-year rule in granny flats, which is you have to be if the arrangement needs to be broken within 5 years, it has, and it's something that could have been reasonably anticipated. It wasn't a real arrangement.
Oh, it was a razzle dazzle,
and they'll go all the way back.
Right.
Yeah. So it's actually a great segue back onto the train tracks. Is to say, if marriage is on the rocks, I mean, that's probably a hard one, but like if there's certain help that, we're going to set up a granny flat arrangement, but dad's really not well and he's going to need to go into residential care relatively soon. And this is something that's come across my desk before. Can we set one of these up? But what does reasonably likely to go in mean? I'm not going to make that call. I'm not a doctor. So this is the kind of that's where some of these challenges can really come in, is that it's a lifetime tenancy. It's a lifetime thing. all of these family factors start playing in, these health factors, what can reasonably be expected to happen. Well, it turns out we were always going to move to Queensland in 2 years. Now we've got to wind the whole thing up. Centrelink will go back to the start as if it didn't exist.
Right. So I'm just stuck at my friend's situation, sorry, because my brain is just thinking a potential way around it. And I will say there is all goodwill, there is love, there is not one drip of financial abuse on the horizon in this situation. It's either, Dad, before you flip and do anything that's significant with transferring ownership or getting a reverse mortgage or bounce it off us. We'll help you.
High trust.
That's a good idea, Dad. Let's do that. No, Dad, that's risky because if your relationship breaks down again, you're going to lose half the house again.
Yep.
Or,
I mean, I'd say the first thing before anything, what is Dad's state? What is the current state of play? I would suggest you get cognitively assessed.
Yeah, and that was leading to my we get assessed and potentially get a joint power of attorney on the two daughters.
Now, again, why are you getting the power of attorney? We're driving Dad to the office to gain power of attorney. He's got questionable cognition. Now, it could be all the best intentions in the world, but for every 9 of those, there's one that's not. And that's the hardest part with all of this. And this is 90% of my work when you described me before. It's like maybe having the daughters as power of attorney, but having an alternative where the daughters are conflicted is actually important. You can actually write into power of attorney documentations that you can act in conflict in certain situations that can be drafted in for good lawyers drafting good documents for people that fully understand it. The daughters are definitely not driving Dad to that appointment. There's so much that flies into this, but it's not just about the reality. Sometimes it's about the perception. And because often people will say stuff to me like, oh, we're power of attorney for Mum and Dad. We want to get them more Centrelink. So we're thinking we'll just gift $10,000 to each other. Yeah, because we can do that, right? It's like, firstly, like just listen to what that sounds like. Oh, no, I didn't mean we want to, do anything. We just didn't think. We were actually trying to do what's in the best interest. But how it can be perceived is the other way. And you never want that to come into question.
Yeah. And that's in these, like, you're right. Like, it gets to the point where you can't protect people from their own stupidity sometimes, particularly if they don't think they're doing stupid things. And we're all guilty of that.
And it's terrible watching a car crash in slow motion when you know you could have done something, but you couldn't have done something.
So in summarizing, the granny flat provisions, it's a great tool. Just give us a summary because
where you've got great,
like all these R numbers and that, it's so complex.
It's not. I wouldn't even start with those numbers.
No.
We went there because it's important to understand how it works. If you're thinking about this, you want to be in a situation where the people entering the arrangement, the people moving in, understand what's happening and it's for them. And the people who you're being moved in understand what's happening and they've got something for them. That everyone is winning, I think is really important. You've addressed the estate aspects. You've addressed do we even get along? Are there things unsaid? Oh, we get along really well. But yeah, that needs to be addressed. If you can't have a mature conversation and set boundaries and respect boundaries and have arguments and that be okay, this is a bad place to be.
Yeah.
You are now living with this person for the rest of their life. It is not a small thing.
But this is where it gets cooked fast, I think. If someone, we'll call it the $1 million, the ton. Dad died a few years ago. Mum's in the big old house. Single child with a family and kids in their late 10s or whatever, around primary school age or whatever. Yeah, we're going to buy a bigger block. We're going to build a new house with a literal granny flat out the back. Mum's going to put the $1 million in. She's got a lifetime tenancy in the granny flat. You get screwed potentially very fast, and it could be a segue to our next episode. What happens if Mum takes a fall and literally has to have a carer full-time, either in-home, which is fine, but if mum had a cognitive decline, pretty fast dementia walked in.
It's too hard to take care of.
Too hard to take care of in the granny flat out the back because, you know, the front house, we've all got a life and kids and things are moving. What do we do?
Yeah. And there's an episode on this because if she has no money, the way
she doesn't, because she just gave $1 million to put into this house with the granny flat out the back.
She'd be low means fully supported or partially supported. The cost of entering care are drastically lower than if she had money. So there
could be a silver lining.
Yeah, but these factors are what good financial advice in these situations will assess.
And that's it. Like, the more I think about this, these granny flat provisions are probably only any good where there's an only child.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think if the other children know what's happening and it's handled properly, they can still work.
But how do the other children, if mum had a $1 million house, mum knows, when I die, I want the 3 kids to have $300,000 each. We use the granny flat provisions. Is there a loan agreement drawn up as well with the siblings that's triggered when mum falls off the perch?
You could do a range of stuff like that, but I'll also say I can think of a case where brother's over in the US, daughter's here, granny flat arrangement, mum moves in, mum's taking care of the grandkids a lot. Like, kids
so there's that
more.
financial trade-off. It's like mum gets mum gets the benefit of being near family, being secure, no maintenance on the property.
Doesn't have to worry about bills and stuff.
It's
That's all
a
taken care
win-win.
of. And the son in the US is like, absolutely, that makes total sense.
Yeah,
I just want mum to be happy.
But knowing the son in the US, mum gave $1 million to his sister, effectively, because mum's living there.
Yeah, and the son said, yeah, but mum's living with you and you're going to take care of mum.
Yes.
It's the best I could hope for.
But this
it's
story,
it's a
but
situation.
you get some cockhead who's money hungry, it falls over pretty fast.
And people get weird when money gets involved. So it's not a bad idea to have like psychology appointments or mediation or some form of family planning sessions. Like,
I mean, the only other way to do it is kind of what my friends did, is literally buy the block and do a pro rata title thing.
Where the asset is still owned by them.
Mum,
And that's a different thing. But I think when you come to these scenarios, so I had someone in contact me once said, mum's passed away, dad's lonely, he lives quite a far away. We're thinking about doing a granny flat. And so we sat down together and we went, okay, granny flat looks like this, him living nearby looks like this, aged care looks like this.
Okay, so just on that, the terminology, we're thinking about doing a granny flat, aka granny flat provision, or
correct,
a literally granny flat, and we don't know the financial arrangement.
Yeah, I mean, he was like granny flat.
Yeah,
move in, build a place out the back. So I spent the time explaining how that would work. What would it look like if you just bought nearby? What are the downsides and upsides, like stamp duty and all that kind of stuff? Dad living by himself, etc. And what would it look like if you went into care? Well, he didn't need care yet. So we kind of covered that off and then looked at those other 2 options and went, okay, well, if he moved in with us, what does that mean? If he lived around the corner, what does that mean? And they went, he doesn't need to move in with us. And also, you know, wife's at home. We've got two kids under 3. Dad's around. Who's taking care of dad? If he does need care, it's actually my wife. Like, is she cool with that? All of these things
so you've pretty much just got to do this. These are the 5 or 6 things that could happen. You keep ticking them off, and when you get to one that's like, oh, that's a hard no, this isn't for me, this option.
Think about it like, what problem are we trying to solve? This is a way to do it. It's like the product thing you said before.
Not everything's for everyone.
We want to invest money. We're going to look at which structures we invested in. We're going to look at, the tax implications and the access restrictions. And there's pros and cons to all of that. But the ultimate outcome is we want mum and dad to have a healthy, comfortable, safe situation where they're not lonely. And we look at all the options on our way there, and then we pick the one that's the best option. This is something important to consider, but it doesn't mean by exploring it, it's going to be where you land.
Yeah, and I guess the way that you set it up with other siblings, you could potentially, do a private loan agreement or something. Anyway, look, lots to cover there. Look, if you, have any questions about this or you are considering this, it might be worth paying for some advice or at least reaching out. We'll put your website, Nathan, in the show notes. I don't usually do this blatantly because I don't want people contacting you for stuff where they're not going to suit you. But if you're in a situation where there could be a situation where there are some moving parts and a little bit of complexity, you'll have a call with someone just to see which way the wind's blowing and point them in the right direction and see
Happy
if
to
you
do
can
a 15-minute quick call, or if they want time, like an hour of time just to understand it better without going to the full advice, we can do that as well.
Yeah, sweet.
And this case study is also written out as a blog too. If they just want to revisit it and kind of read through it, it's on the website.
All right, we'll put that in the comments and the show notes as well. So thank you so much, Nathan Fradley. Nathan, actually, at the time of recording this, he's come up from Melbourne today to Newcastle. He was landing in Newcastle at 10 a.m. or something, but he ended up walking in the door at 3:30, 4 o'clock. So
it's a big transit.
We had some issues leaving Melbourne today.
Yeah, a tyre with a nail in it, apparently.
Yes, but thank you so much. And I think the next episode we'll do, we might redo an aged care refresher because that will tie in well to put as the next episode after this. And then we're going to redo the retiring with Centrelink. And then we're going to do one retiring without Centrelink. How much do we need and how long will it last? So thank you so much for listening. If you found this confusing, well, join the party. My name's Glen James. Thanks for listening today. Bye. Hey, it's Glen here. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You made it to the end. Can I ask a favor? Can you hit that like button and maybe hit subscribe if you want to get notified when we release further videos just like this one, whether you watch the Money, Money, Money podcast or Retire Right. And remember, if you want to learn more about investing, I've got an investing book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing, and there's a link in the description to get your hands on a copy. Thank you so much. Bye.